And I think part of your success is the left has gotten so comfortable with this dogma that they can't believe anybody disagrees.
They can't believe anybody reasonable disagrees, right? Nazis disagree, but they're unreasonable. So anyone who disagrees must be a Nazi.
The British woman who disagreed with you, she was so unreasonable. And I think people like that you just answered her again and again. But nobody challenges them ever in their world.
So conceptual worlds are set up so that the challenge isn't present. You know, the university disciplines that are particularly politically correct, like women's studies, are completely homogenous in their internal viewpoint.
They've never heard these facts.
First of all, they don't regard them as facts because, well, they don't regard science as an independent and valid discipline, let's say. They regard it as an extension of the oppressive patriarchy. And they're not all that interested in facts. They're interested in ideological completeness, let's say, and have a very shaky grasp on history, especially the history of the 20th century. You know, there are reasons for the leftist utopian vision. Inequality is a painful reality, right? And every system that we know generates inequality. It's a real problem, at least the capitalist free market system.
So what's wrong with them saying we have to fight this?
Because there's no evidence that you reduce inequality by doing that. It doesn't help. Like, we don't know how to reduce inequality. And laying inequality at the feet of the capitalist world or at the feet of Western society is ignorant almost beyond comprehension. Inequality is a way worse problem than that.
These are young people. They're so sure of themselves. Where do they get this?
Oh, well, you can lay that primarily at the feet of the universities, as far as I'm concerned. The humanities and the social sciences, the humanities in particular. Disciplines like women's and ethnic studies, which are corrupt right to the core and have been ever since their inception. They're ideologically motivated by their own admission. They're out to produce radical leftist activists by their own admission. All you have to do is go to the websites of these disciplines and look at how they advertise for new recruits. They feed students who are confused and often cynical, prematurely, and bitter, an absolutely toxic ideological brew that's predicated on the idea that compassion trumps everything as a moral virtue and that society is essentially tyrannical. It's like society is tyrannical, but it's not essentially tyrannical. And compassion isn't the only virtue. And we don't know how to deal with inequality in any case. And the Marxist doctrine, despite its surface attractiveness, is clearly murderous. We've got 100 million corpses stacked up to demonstrate that.
Murderous then, but they say Stalin is a bad individual. Doesn't mean that.
Yeah, so was Mao, so was Pol Pot. The thing is it was tried everywhere, under all sorts of different conditions, by all sorts of different people, with all sorts of different rationales, and the end consequence was always the same. Look at Venezuela. Do you know it is now illegal in Venezuela to list starvation as the cause of death in a hospital? That's how the Venezuelan government is dealing with food shortages, right? They've made it illegal to diagnose starvation as the cause of death. It's like that pretty much sums up the Marxist doctrine. So if people, I've heard this all many, many times, that wasn't real communism. You know what that means? That means that if I would have been the benevolent dictator in the place of Stalin, then I would have brought in the utopia. There isn't a more narcissistic and toxic and inexcusable statement that you can possibly make.
And what does communism have to do with you calling somebody by the name they want to be called?
Well, what's paramount? Is it your group identity or you as an individual? And the collectivist claim is that the proper mode of analysis
is better. We're all in this together. People like that.
Yeah, the collectivist idea is that the canonical element of your identity is your group, whatever that is. Now that's a problem because everyone fits into multiple groups, which is why intersectionality arose, right? Because that was the left's discovery of their own Achilles heel. But the fundamental claim is that, yeah, people are best conceptualized as part of their group identity and that you are obliged to respect that identity no matter what. And that drives, in part, these legislative moves that make address that takes into account group identity of paramount importance. So it's a tenuous connection, but the thread still exists. It's connected, at least in part, through the doctrine of radical egalitarianism. Right? The idea that equality outcome is the goal to be desired, even hypothetically, which of course it's wrong hypothetically and wrong practically for a variety of reasons. I mean, the first is You don't want to equalize across all possible dimensions of comparison, because that would make everyone exactly the same in every possible way. And you can't imagine a situation that would be less commensurate with freedom and diversity, let's say, which is another of the left's shibboleths, than a society where everyone was compelled to be equal in every possible way.
But people like that idea. We're all equal.
Yeah, well, there's truth to it in a sense. Like, we're all equal before God. We're all equal before the law. But that's where it stops. And then we're as different as we can be after that. And we actually want to be, because you don't want to pursue the same things that I want to pursue. You don't want to succeed in the same way that I want to succeed. And you might say, well, we don't want there to be success because there has to be failure. And that's a problem. That's the inequality problem. But is that really the case? Is you want to eradicate success as part of the price you pay for eradicating failure? No one lives that way. People might say that's what they want, but no one lives that way, because if you eradicate success, then you have no impetus for action. What are you doing? You acting so that you'll fail? Is that your motivation? Well, if you want to be motivated, which means if you want to have a purpose in life, like a purpose to set us against the suffering, then you have to be aiming at something where success is a possibility. And that opens up the landscape of success and failure. And there's pain associated with that. But that doesn't mean we eradicate the hierarchy of value itself and leave no one with anything to do. It's a terrible doctrine in every way. And it's mostly motivated by resentment.